Hey everybody, it's LavenderTowne. And I'm sure I don't need to tell you how popular TikTok and its filters are. They are everywhere. So today I thought it would be interesting to see if A, I could trick TikTok into thinking that one of my drawings is a real human face, and then B, if I can do that, will the filters make my art look better, just like it makes my face look better? If only I looked like this all the time. So step one, we need a drawing, and I intentionally want this to be as cartoony and as simplified as we can get away with while still tricking the filters, because I feel like that will create the most cursed results. So I started off really cartoony and with just line art. I thought that there's a possibility that the way that the app is figuring out what is or isn't a face is solely based on the placement of certain shapes. So I thought maybe line art would work. I mean, I was completely wrong about that, but I guess still watch me draw this pointlessly. I really thought that it might work, but every time I took a break and just tried it out, the app was just flat out like, that is not a face. I made a couple adjustments, but truthfully, I realized pretty quickly that we were going to need an actual fleshy oval shape for the app to give me any sort of filtering effect. So quickly, after some botched attempts, I tried a different technique, a more painterly technique, where I started with a good fleshy oval, cut out some eyes, and then just sort of splotched in a bunch of highlighted areas to simulate a little bit of depth. This is not my fanciest technique when it comes to painting faces. If you, for some reason, want to see that instead of this hot mess, there's a card that will take you to me trying to draw a face realistically. This, however, was basically me seeing how little I could do and still get away with it. So I just tried to take a more naturalistic approach, just blotched in some eyes, some quick lips. It's literally just two different colors, slightly darker for the top lip, again for some depth. And then I just sort of blended everything out in this hideously ugly default brush. If you're wondering what minimum face is to get a filter on TikTok, this is it. This is the first point at which it started trying to apply filters to the blob that I was painting. As you can see, there's no hair, there's no neck, and it's just really the barest approximation of a human face, but already it's trying to put these freckles on. Some eyelashes are sort of hovering in the vicinity of the eye area, and it is doing something to the lips. I feel like the lips it's very convinced by. So from here, I wanted to see if we could maybe make it look a little better. So I decided to add a little more and see where we could take this so that the filters actually look like they're just added to the drawing rather than hovering horrifyingly over the top of the face, kind of like it does on my own face. We're trying to get more of that realistic look. So slowly I started to try to add some things that I thought might help a little bit. It definitely seemed really confused about where the eyelids were. It was trying to apply those false eyelashes everywhere from the top crease of the eyelid all the way down to the pupil area. So I really needed to give it some help with the eye definition. I decided to also add in some hair. I thought it might help a little bit frame the face and also just make this poor egg girl look a little more complete. I wasn't any closer to really understanding how it was determining where the eyes were, so I thought I would just add in more detail to them generally and try to give it more more to work with, essentially. So I added this sort of arcane style eye bag kind of thing, as well as just more shadowing, a little bit of almost kind of pseudo line art around the edges of the eye to hopefully give it some kind of guide as to where to stick those falsies rather than inside of her eye. And I also gave her some real eyelashes. I thought for sure that might help. And I decided to give her a neck just out of the goodness of my heart. Generally, I don't think it will help necessarily with this. I was feeling bad for her, and I think that it makes her look a lot more human-like. Yeah, I took a pause here to try again, and well, things didn't go so good. I gave her a turtleneck while I tried to forget what I had seen, and then after that I decided to take another crack at her eyes. I felt like maybe the illustrative way that I did her pupils kind of super large and didn't darken down the top of her iris properly might have been the problem, and so I did try that. I added more sort of shadow to her eye and made it look a little bit less illustrative, then I decided to generally add a lot of details everywhere. I felt like her lips were doing kind of just fine, so I didn't really have to add much to them. Her eyes were the biggest problem. Everything else seemed to be fine. Like, it always knew where to put her nose contour and her nose highlight. Whenever it would like enlarge her lips or change their color, they were always like perfectly matched up. The eyes were just really throwing it for a loop, and that is an issue that I know even people with, you know, actual human faces sometimes have, where the tracking on the eyes isn't quite right. So you know, I gotta give my illustration girl a bit of a break. At this point I felt pretty confident that her eyes were close enough to human eyes that it was going to pick up the right place to put the eyelashes, and here we were to stop. So now I have to hunt and see if I can find a filter that actually makes her look better and not worse. So my first instinct was to use the ones that were popular with real human faces, like Jelly Look, Belle, and Scarlet. These are all filters that do slight changes to your lips and, you know, puts false eyelashes on. People tend to really like these. They usually add a little highlight to the eye. Generally, I think they look pretty atrocious on her. It just looks weird, like she doesn't look right at all. And even though the heterochromia one kind of worked, it also kind of didn't. It was floating a little bit. Any of the ones that added contour just made her look really strange. So I can say that these more basic ones where they're just adding a little contour or eyelashes or slightly changing the color of things are probably my least favorite to apply to your art, though I still recommend trying it if you've never done it before. The worst one in this category is easily the color contact one, because it just looks terrifying watching her second iris sort of bounce around in her eyeball. It's completely horrifying. Then I stumbled upon the oil painting one, and I will say that surprisingly this actually looks pretty good. I kind of fell in love with the canvas texture they plastered over it, and I like how they added more contrast and warmth. But obviously this rat filter takes the cake. I mean, this is clearly the best one. I can't believe it so successfully pulled out her nose and mouth. This shows me that the nose and mouth part of the tracking is really working well. This one as well, this one's quite creepy and disturbing. And apparently she's only smiling 20 to 30%, which I guess good to know. I can honestly say that these goofier ones are definitely my favorite to put on my art, just because they're so clearly not intended for it, but weirdly it actually meshes better than the ones that are supposed to look kind of natural. I don't know, there's something kind of charming about it. When it comes to using the filters for some sort of actual like artistic purpose, I think the ones that change around the like hue and saturation could be useful, especially if you just feel like you're not happy with the colors and you want to very quickly try out some other things. I think there is some real world use for that. I would also say that the ones where you can like attach piercings to the character is kind of great, because I mean it's so instant. You can just sort of check out how it looks on them and see if that's something you want to add to your OC or whatever, and it surprisingly works quite well, even if the placement isn't totally perfect. I hope you guys enjoyed this silly little video. If you liked it, you should definitely check out the face tuning one. I hope you're having a wonderful 2022 so far, and I'll see you in the next one. Huge thanks to all of my patrons, including Avant Grape, Gender Was Stolen, Edward Averill, Haley, Beelzebub, First Spookable, Vegas, it's Jamal, Kay, Rodrigo, Kubo, Moonmilk, Kadaria, Something Super, Deadly Nightshade Art, Maria Vasquez, Astral Fox Art, Middle Z, Lily Allure, The Expressive Poker Face, Morrissey Axolotl, Tsubaki, Michael Lavalley, Cutie Pie, Ruin Raincrow, Rainwater Pearls, Ice Cream Pal, Cola, Instadnia, Your Boy ST, JJ Jade, and of course, Lib 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 Lib.